Hey there, welcome to Curtis Stage Video Tutorials. This tutorial is in Dreamweaver using Photoshop and creating a seamless background image for your website. Now just as a review, let's talk about the 4 background possibilities for your HTML or CSS document. Number 1 would be a solid color. That's pretty self-explanatory. Number 2 would be a repeating XY pattern. That is a nice thing to have just in case you want to have a site that looks something like this that has a background. It would be a small little image, so you could take any one of these, for instance. I love this website, by the way, Css3 Patterns. And so what could happen is you take these, it's a little teeny, maybe take just these little diamond shapes and repeat them across your whole background. So what's great about using a pattern is that it's a small file size. What's maybe not so good about it is sometimes it's a little difficult on the eyes. So the third way is a full body background covering image that expands or contracts with the browser. So when you pull the browser bigger, the picture expands with it. When you make the browser smaller, the picture contracts with it. So that's a good way to do it as well. And the fourth way is what we're going to cover today, which is using a single image which is seamless and fades into the background color of the body. All right, so let's get started. So in Dreamweaver, I have just a regular document set up, and you can see that I have a solid gray background here. And I want to insert an image in the back of this. And we're going to do that first, and I'll show you the seam that shows up. And then from there, we'll learn how to fix that. So I'm going to go into code view, and I'll go up to the body tag in CSS. And you can see there's where the background color is. And here's where I'm going to insert my background image. So the property would be background-image. As soon as I put this in here, it'll ask me if I want to browse for that. Certainly do. I have a folder set up with this file plus the image. So I found this image just on the internet, and semicolon to end that. And if I go to design view, there I've got my background image. It was big. It was 1920 by 1080, so that's pretty large. You can see that by default, it's going to repeat this. So I have to tell it not to repeat it. In other words, if I go here and I preview this in Safari or Chrome and see what that looks like on a web browser, it's going to get to a point where it'll repeat this image the more content that I have within my browser. So for instance, if I keep adding content, let's say to this footer and make it big, you can see, oh, there we go. There's where my image starts again, and I have a seam there. So I probably don't want something like this. So we want to learn how to make a seamless background for that. Again, if I go and preview this in Safari, you'll see that there's my image repeating once again. The goal today would be to get rid of this. There's a good easy trick to doing that. All right, so I have my image opened up here in Photoshop. And what I like to do is I like to pick a solid color that the background image is going to fade into. And that solid color then will be selected as the background color for the body. So you can have both a background image and a background color in body and tell the background image to not repeat in the body tag. So what I'm going to do first here in Photoshop is I have my image open. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to go to my gradient tool. And in the gradient tool, I'm going to go here to the gradient editor. And I'm going to click on a solid color to see-through or transparency. So right over here, I'm going to go with black because I've got black already in this fruit image. So you can see that it's going from black to nothing. Now, how I adjust the nothing is right up here. When I go to this little stop right here, this controls the opacity or transparency of an image. So I have 0% opacity. You can see that if I take that all the way down to nothing, right, I've got 0 there. I also want to switch this color to white. There you go. So now I have 0% opacity going to white. I'm going to click OK. And when you got to make sure that you're in Photoshop, you have to have transparency selected right up here. So I've got that checked on my options bar. I also want to make sure my mode is normal and my opacity on this layer is 100%. I also like to check a linear gradient here. So I'm going to pick linear gradient. Mode is normal, no blend mode. Opacity 100%, and I want to make sure that I have transparency selected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a gradient So I could draw this small. The only problem with that is that these bubbles down here, I can still see them, and they're gonna look like they repeat. So I want to draw this just big enough so that I don't have any bubbles, or in this case, any water droplets on this image. So something like that's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna save this up and go save for web. So File, Save for Web. Save this as a JPEG. I can bring the quality down a little bit to bring the file size down, because half a megabyte's pretty big. So I can bring my quality down to maybe 70 something. And every picture is going to be a little bit different. The more detail you have, the bigger the file is going to be. So this is pretty good. It doesn't look too bad. I'm going to click Save. I'm going to save this to my folder. I'm going to give it a little different name here. So I'm going to call it BG. Click Save. And now when I go back here to Dreamweaver, I'm going to switch that so that the code now it's looking for BG here. So I'm just going to hand type this in, BG. And when I go to Design View, now I've got that one right there. So now you can see it's working, but then it will get to the bottom and it's going to repeat this image again. Let's look at that on Safari. So I'm going to click Save. And that's all great until I get there. Oh, you know, I don't want that happening. So this looks good, but I don't want this happening. So I have to tell, in CSS, I have to tell Dreamweaver to not repeat that background. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say background and then repeat. And I'm going to say no repeat. You could pick either X or Y coordinates, but I'm going to say no repeat in either direction. That would mean X or Y. And now when I go back to Design View, I won't see that seam anymore with the image repeating again. But now what I have to do is I have to change my background color to black. So I'm going to go back to my code and go up here to Body, and I'm going to change this background color to black. So that would be 000. Okay, and then when I go here, now it will fade to black. So if I go here to Safari, preview on Chrome or Safari, I've got a perfectly fading image like this. So it's only displaying the image one time, not repeating X or Y, and when I get to the bottom, since I faded in black in Photoshop, I've got this nice fade on the image, and you see no seam. So there you have it, seamless background image using Photoshop for Dreamweaver. Thank you very much. This has been another Curtis Stage tutorial. We'll see you next time.